April 9th, 1945. The war has 3 weeks left. American tanks are 50 miles away. In a concentration camp in Bavaria, a naked man is dragged before a makeshift gallows. He has been tortured for months. His body is broken, but his face is calm. Before they pull the rope, he taps a message in Morse code on the wall of his cell to the man next door. I die for my fatherland. I have a clean conscience. I only did my duty for my country when I tried to oppose the criminal folly of Hitler, leading Germany to destruction. The man being hanged that morning is not a prisoner of war. He is not a spy caught behind enemy lines. He is the head of Nazi Germany's entire military intelligence service. For 9 years, he sat directly at Hitler's side. He controlled every German spy on earth. He knew every secret the Reich possessed, and he used every single one of them against Hitler. How does the most powerful spy in the Third Reich become Hitler's most dangerous enemy? And how did he hide it for 9 years inside the belly of the beast? His name was Wilhelm Franz Canaris, Admiral, head of the Abwehr, Nazi Germany's military intelligence, the most powerful spy apparatus in the world. He reported directly to Hitler. He had the ear of every general, every minister, every powerful man in the Reich. He controlled a network of thousands of agents across 6 continents, and he spent nearly a decade using that power to smuggle Jews to safety, feed secrets to the Allies, sabotage Nazi operations, and plot, repeatedly, to bring Hitler down. Welcome to Echoes of Valor X. Today we read the diaries and testimonies of the man history almost forgot. A man so dangerous to Hitler that the Fuhrer waited until the last weeks of the war to have him killed, and even then wasn't completely sure what he'd done. This is the story of Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, Hitler's spymaster, Hitler's nightmare. January 1st, 1935. Wilhelm Canaris is appointed head of the Abwehr. He is 47 years old, a decorated naval officer from WW1, a patriot, a man with impeccable credentials, and at the time a certain admiration for Adolf Hitler. Germany had been humiliated after WW1, stripped of its military, crushed by debt. Hitler had reversed all of that. The economy was roaring. The army was rebuilding. To many conservative officers like Canaris, Hitler seemed like a necessary force, a strong hand, a patriot. But Canaris was not a fanatic. He was something far more dangerous. He was a watcher, an observer, a man who read people the way others read maps. And the more he watched Adolf Hitler, the more he saw something that chilled him.
He does not love Germany. He loves the idea of himself saving Germany. There is a difference. One will sacrifice anything for the country. The other will sacrifice the country for himself. I see it now. I was slow to see it, but I see it.
2 events broke Canaris's faith in Hitler completely. First, the Blomberg-Fritsch affair of 1938. Hitler destroyed the careers and reputations of 2 of Germany's most senior generals, using fabricated evidence, simply to seize supreme command of the military for himself. Canaris was stunned. He had believed Hitler was a statesman. Now he saw only a man willing to devour his own.
What Hitler did to those men was criminal. There is no other word for it. He invented charges. He ruined honorable officers. He did it to make himself supreme, not Germany, himself. I will not forget this.
Then came Kristallnacht. November 9th, 1938. Across Germany, Nazi thugs smashed Jewish businesses, burned synagogues, and dragged thousands to concentration camps. The world watched in horror. Canaris watched too, from his office window in Berlin, as the smoke rose over the city. 2 days later, he made a decision that would define the rest of his life.
I cannot resign. If I resign, someone worse takes my place, someone who will obey every order with enthusiasm. I cannot stop what Hitler is doing, but I can slow it. I can obstruct it. I can use what I have to fight what I cannot say openly I am fighting. That is my war now. A war fought in silence, in corridors, in forged documents, and failed missions, and men who never reached their targets, because I made sure they wouldn't.
What Canaris built inside the Abwehr was extraordinary and extraordinarily dangerous. He systematically purged the most fanatical Nazis from his staff and replaced them with men who shared his doubts, his values, his willingness to look the other way. His second-in-command, Hans Oster, was described by Franz Halder as a man fired by a burning hatred of Hitler. Together, they turned the most powerful intelligence agency in the world into a weapon against the man it was supposed to serve. The operations were relentless and breathtaking in their audacity. Operation 1: Saving the Jews. Canaris used Abwehr cover to smuggle hundreds of Jews out of Nazi Europe. In 1941 alone, he moved 500 Jews from occupied Holland to Spain and Portugal, disguising them as Abwehr intelligence agents. They reached South America, Panama, Mexico. They lived. He maintained a personal diary documenting Nazi atrocities, evidence he planned to use if the regime ever fell. Operation 2: Spain. In December 1940, Hitler sent Canaris to Spain to personally pressure Franco into entering the war on Germany's side. It would have opened the entire Western Mediterranean to Nazi control. It would have strangled Britain's supply lines. Instead, Canaris met privately with Franco and talked him out of it, told him Britain was far from defeated, that the risks were too great. Spain stayed neutral for the rest of the war. The Spanish government later paid a pension to Canaris's widow. Franco, it was said, remained forever grateful to the Admiral. Operation 3: Leaking Allied secrets. Through a trusted intermediary in Switzerland, Canaris began feeding intelligence to the British. He warned London about Hitler's plans to invade the Soviet Union months before it happened. He tipped off contacts about German military movements. He kept back intelligence that would have cost Allied lives.
Every morning, I ride horses in the Tiergarten with Heydrich. He is the most dangerous man in Germany. He suspects everything. He misses nothing. And every morning I smile at him and talk of nothing, and inside I am counting every secret I must keep from him for one more day. This is not courage. Courage is dying for something. This is something colder, something more exhausting. This is smiling at a man who would kill you without hesitation, and smiling back and riding on.
Reinhard Heydrich, the hangman of Prague, the architect of the Holocaust. He and Canaris were neighbors in Berlin, personal acquaintances, and daily rivals. Heydrich's SD intelligence service and Canaris's Abwehr operated in parallel, watching each other constantly. By 1942, British intelligence had concluded that something extraordinary was happening inside the Abwehr. As intelligence officer Hugh Trevor Roper noted, the Abwehr was suspected by the party not only of inefficiency, but of disloyalty. They were right. But for 2 more years, Canaris managed to hold it together. By 1943, the Gestapo was closing in. 2 Abwehr men connected to Canaris's network committed suicide rather than be interrogated. Others were arrested. The walls of the double life were starting to crack. And then came July 20th, 1944. The bomb plot. Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg placed a bomb under a conference table at Hitler's headquarters. It detonated. Hitler survived, saved by luck, by a thick table leg, by seconds. The aftermath was a bloodbath. Over 5,000 people were executed. The Gestapo tore through Germany's military and intelligence establishment like a scythe. Canaris had known about some elements of the plot. He had not directly participated, but he had not stopped it either.
When the Gestapo came to arrest me, I met them in full dress uniform. I saluted them with my ceremonial baton. They grabbed it from my hand while I was being handcuffed. I suppose that is as good a summary of this war as any.
For months, Canaris endured interrogation. He was brilliant, too brilliant. He knew how Gestapo interrogations worked. He knew what to admit, what to deny, what to let them think they had found. He stalled. He was kept alive, partly because Himmler wondered if he could use Canaris's British contacts to negotiate a separate peace. But in early April 1945, with American troops less than 100 miles from Flossenburg concentration camp, Canaris's diary was discovered, smuggled from Abwehr headquarters. 6 binders, 6 notebooks, years of meticulous, damning records. Hitler read them personally and signed the execution order that same day. April 9th, 1945. Dawn. 3 weeks before Germany's surrender, the war Hitler started is consuming the last square miles of the Reich. Berlin is being shelled. The 1,000-year empire has days left. In Flossenburg concentration camp, Wilhelm Canaris is led naked to a makeshift gallows. He is hanged twice. The first time the rope brought him to the edge of death, not beyond. Then they finished it. He was 58 years old. In the cell next door, a Danish intelligence officer named Lunding heard the Morse code tapping through the wall. He later testified to what Canaris said in his final moments. "I die for my fatherland. I have a clean conscience. I only did my duty for my country when I tried to oppose the criminal folly of Hitler leading Germany to destruction. Look after my wife and daughters." His diary, all 6 binders, vanished. No physical copy has ever been recovered. What he documented, what he knew, what might still be embarrassing to governments in London and Washington, gone. But not everything was lost. The Jews he smuggled out of Holland were in South America, alive. Franco had kept Spain neutral, millions of lives not consumed by a wider war. British intelligence had received his warnings, operations altered, men saved. The Abwehr had been run for nearly a decade by a man committed to its failure. No one will ever know exactly how many people Wilhelm Canaris saved. The math is impossible. You cannot count what never happened. You cannot number the missions that quietly failed, the orders that were quietly disobeyed, the doors left open for those who needed to run. History tends to celebrate soldiers, men who charged into fire, men with medals and parades, and names on monuments. Wilhelm Canaris will never have a monument. He cannot. His heroism was invisible by design. A monument to a spy who worked in silence would be a contradiction. But consider what he represents. A man inside one of the most evil systems in human history, who did not resign, did not flee, did not collapse into compliance. He stayed, and he fought, not with a weapon, but with the one thing the regime could not easily destroy, a mind that refused to obey. He wore the uniform. He gave the salutes. He attended the meetings, and the entire time his mind was working against every single thing those meetings stood for. One colleague wrote of him, he was not what he seemed. No, he was not. He was much, much more. If this story stayed with you, if you want to hear more about the men and women who fought the war that never made the history books, subscribe to Echoes of Valor X. The forgotten ones deserve to be found.